some people here walking their dogs. Totally fine. I really don't have an issue with that. Why not? But I think they're looking at me and maybe thinking, with the lockdown haircut in the bag, which I'll explain in a minute, that I might be moving into the woods. But I'm not. And nor am I a tramp. So Coronavision 8, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be looking at how you might pack for an overnight camp, a night hike, the kind of thing that we went to the Hopes Reservoir and did. But what we're going to do is we're going to do it in the context of this social distancing in terms of this lockdown. At some point, someone at Scouts somewhere is going to have to think about how we might return. And with social distancing, it makes it quite difficult. However, we're already quite well set up to work on our own. We've already got equipment where we can cook for ourselves, we can sleep in tents, we know how to do that. When you're walking, you're going to have to maintain a distance, obviously. We probably cannot return to activities in the hall because that's too enclosed and you are just going to end up like wrestling with each other because that's what you do, and that's totally fine under normal circumstances, but we can't do that. So the concentration here is on not touching each other, obviously, maintaining that distance, but also not sharing anything. So everything that you need, you're going to have to carry. You can't, for example, say, oh, I forgot a spork, I'll just borrow his. Elements of the virus can cling onto a surface, put there by person A, and then you come along person B and pick it up, and then pick your nose, and like pure just shove virus up your nose. It's a no-no. First of all, let's see how we would pack for a single night expedition, night hike type thing. So this is my ancient 65 litre rucksack. 65 litres for me is a good compromise. If you've got more than that, you'll fill it with things that you don't really need. Any less than that, then you might struggle to put stuff in it. You want to get as much as you can inside your rucksack. Things hanging off the outside of it will get wet easily and also will rub and hit you on the backs of the legs. So 65 litres, that includes the top pocket and the side pockets there. I like to have pockets on the outside so that I don't have to open the rucksack completely to get something that I need. I can put those things on the outside so they're easily accessible. Things that you might put on the outside are water, sweets, waterproofs, gloves if it gets cold, maybe a hat, things like that. Always a good idea to have straps on the outside anyway so that you can store stuff if you need to. We'll have a wee look inside the rucksack in a minute, but we're just going to turn it round and have a look at the straps that attach it to you. It's not massively important. This wasn't an expensive rucksack, but it still came with this adjustable back strap system. It slides up and down so you can adjust how high up your back it sits. The reason for that is because when you're using one of these rucksacks, and this is really important, it's something that a lot of people don't realise, is that you need to try and put as much weight as you can onto your hips using this. This is a belt that goes around your waist, not on your shoulders, because you'll ruin your shoulders if you just put everything on your. That's fine for a day sack, but not for a rucksack. So when you're buying a rucksack, go for one with a sturdy padded waist strap. The idea is that when you're walking with your rucksack is have these straps tight enough so that it doesn't move and rub your shoulders or your back, but not so tight that it constricts your movement. It's worth taking the time to make sure that all your straps are at the right tension, because otherwise you're going to be deeply uncomfortable. So let's have a look at the inside of it. So before we go any further, we have made a few adjustments to the contents of the rucksack to account for social distancing. However, they're not massively huge. It's basically a case of stuff that you would have shared out before to share the weight, we're not sharing out now. So you're carrying your own food, you're carrying your own fuel, you're carrying your own cooking equipment, none of that will be shared. So that's really the main changes that we've made. We have some other changes about extras that we're carrying to maintain the social distancing, and we'll get to that in a wee second. In keeping with having all of the things that we might need in an emergency or quickly on the outside, at the top here we have waterproof trousers and gaiters, shorty gaiters. In the side pockets we have water. If you need to stop for a drink, you don't want to go dig into the bottom of your rucksack, so water goes in the side pocket. On the other side we have snacks. If you're walking, you want some sugary snacks to give you some energy, so some snacks are Haribo, always good. A hat for if your head gets cold, good. And gloves. Normally in the summer I would say you could probably dispense with gloves, but Scottish weather is just so changeable. This rucksack, the central section, is here. We've got another smaller section down the bottom. Traditionally the bottom section I don't know why, but I've always put my sleeping bag in there. You'd think that would be bad, because if you're putting your rucksack on the ground and the ground's wet, your sleeping bag's going to get wet. I always pack that sort of thing in bags in the bag, but we'll get into that. Top section, and at the top here I have my first aid kit. Another thing that we're going to have to think about for social distancing is group first aid kits. Normally I carry a group first aid kit, but you're going to have to carry your own first aid kits. Don't worry, if you're heinously injured, I will administer to you, although that might not be a great thing, but I will come over and have a look at you. I'll put gloves on and I'll put something around my face so I'm not breathing all over your open wound. I won't just leave you to bleed out, because that would be a dereliction of duty, I think we can all agree. I would have said. Going into the rucksack, as a rule generally, the things you need the most should be closer to the top. Food. So I've got enough food here for one night. There's some noodles in there, there's some noodle sauce. I've got some energy bar type things. They'll not last very long. I'll probably have them before I even leave here. So there's some cutlery in there. There's a sachet of coffee 3-in-1, and although I probably wouldn't use it, it's just if you want a hot drink. There's also a cup of soup in there. You want to try and take food with you that doesn't require an awful lot of water, because that just means less water to carry. These noodles and the sauce just go in the pan and you mix them up. You can even maybe buy some vegetables. I think they grow in the ground and they're good for you. And that's for you. You're not going to share that. You can't hand that to anyone else. And you really, to be on the safe side, can't be taking food from other people if you don't have something. Digging a wee bit deeper, we have my ancient and really heavy and bulky Thermarest. You can also get 3/4 length Thermarest, which just basically go down to your knees to keep the main brunt of your body up off the ground. Thermarest, a nice cushion of air for you to lie on. When you're out and about, if you're doing an expedition, whether it's a weekend or a longer, possibly a week-long expedition, you don't want to be taking too many clothes. Certainly not the amount of clothes that you'd be taking for a summer holiday. What you don't want to skimp on though is socks. Take many socks. If you're just away overnight, bring an extra 2 or 3 pairs in case they get wet. Also in this bag, I have my guide blanket. I was at a scout camp years ago and they were selling blankets. There was scout blankets and guide blankets. The scout blankets were like made out of thistle or something. They were like jaggy, uncomfortable and rubbish. The guide blankets though, oh, it's so soft for guides, honestly. So I bought a guide blanket. It is quite bulky, but it is also quite light, and it is worth its weight and space in the middle of the night when it gets a bit chilly. Okay, last couple of things out of here. We have a Trangia and mess. Now I've picked the mess burning Trangia for this because it just takes up slightly less space than the gas bottles, and also you can use this to light fires, which I wouldn't advise, but the option's there. Last to come out the top section of the bag is a supply of bags for life. They take up no space, so it's worth having. They go down there. I have my knife for chopping wood. Here I've also got my smaller pen knife, which is there. It was a gift from the Explorer Scouts, and I've got a sharpening stone as well. And finally, this is a new purchase. I have this. Now this is a new thing, and I'm going to try and put it up in the woods. That's why I'm here, because I needed 2 trees. One of the things that is popular these days with explorers and scouts is hammocking. Now, I've never actually thought that we get the weather in Scotland to do hammocking, but hammocking is totally 100% conducive to you being socially distanced. You're not going to get, well, you could get more than one person in a hammock, but we're not going to explore that. Generally, you're going to be in one of these by yourself. You can stack them, so you go 1, 2, 3 above each other. If the person on the top of that needs to get up for a pee in the middle of the night, that's problematic for the people beneath them. but for social distancing purposes you'll be on your own between two trees away from everyone else. So last section of the rucksack is the bottom section here. We just unpack it. Again, we have everything packed into a bag for life, and in here we have, this is a lightweight camp towel. See, you don't need to bring a massive bulky towel. You can buy these quite cheaply from Go Outdoors or Blacks or any of these shops on Amazon, I suppose, these days. Also in here we have a sleeping bag liner. Remember, you're going to be on your own in your tent or hammock, so sleeping bag liner is important because you're not going to be able to rely on other people's body heat to keep you warm at the night. So one of those. We also have a bivy bag. This is not a great bivy bag, however it is totally waterproof, totally windproof. So if you're in your hammock, say, or your tent and you're on your own, it is a good layer to keep the heat in. So bivy bag. And then of course your sleeping bag. Quick word about sleeping bags. This is a 2/3 season bag, not an expensive bag. 2-3 season is supposed to be good for temperatures, extreme temperature -6. I've been in my house and used this and been cold, so not -6. But again, that's why you have your sleeping bag liner, so you can augment. And obviously we've got the blanket there. All this fitted in that rucksack and it wasn't that heavy, so it's doable. Always be just a wee bit skeptical about the temperatures that they say these bags are good for, because yeah, they're not really a standard Halloween camp where the temperature at night might go down to 5, no frost, but maybe 5 or 6 degrees. This isn't going to be warm enough by itself. It just isn't. And that's if you're in a tent with people. So that's this completely empty. So we'll move on to the social distancing aspect of our camping. So we've talked a wee bit about how you might socially distance when you've stopped walking. So we're talking about not sharing equipment, not sharing food, carrying everything that you need yourself, and generally just being more self-sufficient than you normally would be. Instead of being a self-sufficient group, you would be a self-sufficient person within a group of self-sufficient other persons. But when you're walking, what are you going to do? Well, firstly, you need to be aware of things like hand washing. What I've got here is one of these. Nurses at Louisa Jordan walk around with these. It's just a wee bottle of antibacterial hand wash, and they have it on a belt on an extendable keyring thing, and they walk around, and after they've touched anything they just have a wee wash. Okay. We've obviously had to walk to get to our campsite, and you're going to have to remember to keep your distance from each other. The 2 metre rule is time dependent. If you're just standing for 50 minutes 2 metres from someone and you're chatting, that's totally fine. However, if you're standing for 2 hours, 2 metres isn't actually enough. There's a sliding scale of the effectiveness of the 2 metre distance rule. If you're walking with your pals, you don't need to worry too much about if they're beside you, you know, if you're side by side, because you're leaving everything behind you. However, what you're leaving behind you is probably going into the faces of the people behind you, so they need to stay back a bit. So if you're on a Land Rover track or a forestry track and you can remain two metres apart, that's fine, side by side, but maybe the people behind you want to stay a wee bit further back. So I would suggest that maybe you pair off and walk in pairs, but maintain your distance, and each pair maintains more of a distance from each other. If you're walking single file, fair enough, walk in pairs, but you're going to have to maintain a distance because you're going to be walking into the space that the person in front of you has just breathed into. If it's a breezy day, it's going to get blown away, and you really can be a bit more pragmatic and not worry too much about it. However, you still do need to maintain the 2 metre distance. Now, one of the best ways to maintain a 2 metre distance is with a walking pole. If they come near you, give them a whack upside the head. Seems fair to me. The other thing that you can maybe think about, clever clogs out there, is an app on your phone. Other than that, when you are walking, you just need to make sure that you're not handing anything back or forth. If someone's got some Haribo out, what a glorious day when you don't have to share your Haribo. Not glorious for the person that doesn't have any Haribo. So what have we got? It's a decent waterproof bag that all comes in with a waterproof seal on the top. So here we have the nylon rain tarp, the first part, and then we have the actual hammock and bug net. not because it's comfy, but because I can't. I think I would need to, I think we would all, if we bought these, they're quite expensive to buy, because obviously just for one person. You buy a hike tent expect to put maybe 2 people in it, so. However, you would need to experiment and get comfy. I'm still kind of not lying transverse at an angle between, so tree 1, tree 2, and instead of lying like that, you're supposed to lie. And I can't quite get myself into a position. Frankly, I've ran out of breath trying to do it. I'm flopping about here like a catfish on the banks of the Mississippi. The point is that I think it will take a wee bit of time to get used to it. However, it is very comfy, so it gets 10 out of 10 for that. I don't think you can get out of this with any more style than you can get out of a hike tent though. I think it probably is a case of just rolling out of it and hoping that you don't land on your face. To be fair, if I landed on my face, you wouldn't really notice, and also when you're in a hike tent, you're probably like lying with your face against, well, whatever happened to be there at the time. So you wake up with an imprint of like a pile of clothes on your face, you know, and some pants stuck to your head, and get up, and if you don't check, you don't always think to check because you have to get dressed lying down. So this is still an improvement. I have to say, I get nervous in hike tents because you're zipped in and you can't see what's going on around about. This is slightly better. You can kind of see. If I pitched the rain tarp a bit higher up, I would be able to get good all-round vision and it would be fine. If a bear or a wolf or a Ned, would more likely to be a Ned in Scotland, decided to rush you and you were in here, it'd be alright because they would be laughing at you trying to get out of it. That would distract them, but on balance it's a wee bit better because at least you can see round about you, you've got good vision. I still don't know if the weather in Scotland is conducive to hammocking, but gosh, it's so much more comfortable than lying on the ground. It really is. I'm going to have to get out now because I need the toilet. I told you I forgot a mug, and I forgot this other thing. One other item that you could pack is, and I get slagged off for this, a brolly. It is just the most portable tent. If you've stopped to have your lunch and it's just drizzling or raining, everyone else is like standing, and it's like they've got their waterproofs on and that's fine, but their salads are getting even more soggy than salads tend to be. And you have your brolly, hold on while I press the button, and you're just quite happily having your lunch. Take a brolly. I get slagged off and so will you, but you will be more comfortable. Also, if you can find a brolly that does this, don't do this with your head in it because I only bought it because it did that. It's quite sad. So there we have it. Hammocks are very comfortable. We know that hike tents aren't particularly comfortable. And also ideas for getting back to scouting which account for social distancing or proximity awareness, as I think it should be called. If you've got any ideas about how we might get back to scouting, taking into consideration proximity awareness, comment below. I know that South East Scotland Scouts and East Lothian District look at our Facebook page, and I'm sure they'd be really keen to hear ideas that any of you have about how we might get back to a version of scouting that takes into consideration COVID-19 and the circumstances that we're currently in. Other than that, if you've got any ideas for videos going forward, let me know. I am doing all the heavy lifting here. I'm beginning to resent it, I can't lie. So if you've got any ideas about what you might like to see, then let me know. Other than that, that's it. There is no more. That's your lot. Goodbye.
Ah.